I've been diagnosed with OCD, obsessive Costco disorder. The only thing more reliable and consistent than the $1.50 hot dog soda combo is God.
Costco does not panic. That is what makes this so alarming. The warehouse giant that survived COVID shortages, supply chain meltdowns, and inflation spikes without blinking has quietly flagged 6 specific food categories it cannot guarantee restocking before 2027. No press release, no shelf signs, just internal supplier communications, buyer memos, and a pattern of empty pallets that tells the whole story. 6 items, real timelines. Here is what is actually happening. Number 6. Kirkland Signature Extra Virgin Olive Oil. This is the item that first triggered the internal supplier review, and it starts with a number most people cannot believe. Global olive oil production has collapsed by roughly 40% over the past 3 consecutive harvests. Spain, which produces more olive oil than any other country on Earth and supplies a dominant share of Costco's Kirkland private label sourcing, recorded regional harvest failures of up to 60% during the 2023 to 2024 growing season. The trees did not die. The conditions that allow them to produce did. Sustained drought, record heat during the flowering stage, and soil moisture deficits that carry over from one season into the next combined to devastate output across Andalusia, Extremadura, and Castilla-La Mancha, the 3 regions responsible for the overwhelming majority of Spanish bulk olive oil production. Here is what most consumers misunderstand about olive oil supply. This is not a commodity you can simply grow more of to meet demand. Olive trees take 3 to 5 years after planting to produce any meaningful yield, and 10 to 15 years to reach the peak output levels that commercial suppliers depend on. When a mature orchard gets stressed by consecutive seasons of extreme heat and drought, the damage to productive capacity does not reverse in 12 months. It reverses slowly, incompletely, and unpredictably over years. The growers who lost productive capacity in 2023 are not back to full output in 2026. The trees that survived in a weakened state are producing at a fraction of their historical yield, and the younger replacement trees planted in response to the crisis are years away from contributing meaningfully to supply. What compounds the problem further is the global demand picture. Mediterranean diet adoption has grown consistently across North American and Northern European consumer markets over the past decade. Restaurant and food service consumption of olive oil has expanded even as retail prices climbed. Global demand did not contract to match the supply shortfall. It kept growing into a shrinking supply pool. That is the textbook condition for sustained price elevation, not a temporary spike that corrects itself in one season. Costco's Kirkland olive oil is sourced under long-term bulk contracts that were negotiated when supply was more predictable. Those contracts are now coming up against a physical reality that no contract can override. There is not enough oil at the quality level and volume the Kirkland specification requires. The internal buyer response has been a combination of sourcing diversification, pulling from Greek and Tunisian production to supplement Spanish shortfalls, and quiet reductions in pallet quantities delivered to individual warehouse locations. The reductions are not dramatic enough to trigger empty shelf optics at any single store. They are consistent enough that the cumulative drawdown of distribution center inventory is running faster than replenishment. The Greek supply buffer carries its own fragility. Greece has faced its own climate stress in olive-producing regions, particularly in Crete and the Peloponnese, where heat events and reduced winter rainfall have pressured yields. Tunisian production has expanded but faces political and logistical instability that makes it an unreliable cornerstone of a long-term sourcing strategy. Diversification away from Spain does not solve the problem. It moderates it temporarily while the underlying supply deficit persists. A sealed bottle of olive oil stores at full quality for 18 to 24 months. The Costco 2-pack, which gives you 2 liters for a price that the current market makes extraordinary, is the stock-up opportunity. It will not look like this on the other side of the supply timeline. Olive oil is a harvest story playing out across decades. Number 5 is a shorter fuse, and it is already burning. Number 5. Wild Alaskan Salmon, Kirkland canned and frozen. Wild salmon is the product Costco built an entire premium seafood identity around. The Kirkland Wild Alaskan Pink and Sockeye lines are among the best-selling seafood SKUs in the warehouse, which makes what is happening in the Northern Pacific right now a direct threat to one of the most trusted items in the building. Commercial salmon fishing in Alaskan waters operates under annual catch allocations set by the North Pacific Fishery Management Council. These allocations are not arbitrary. They are set based on run surveys, escapement data, and stock health assessments that determine how many fish can be harvested without damaging the breeding population that produces future seasons. When stock health deteriorates, allocations get cut, and Alaskan salmon stock health has been deteriorating. Ocean temperatures in the Gulf of Alaska and the Bering Sea have been running above historical averages for multiple consecutive years. Salmon are cold water species with narrow temperature tolerance bands. Elevated ocean temperatures affect their prey availability, alter their migratory timing, push their runs into different geographic patterns than the fleet is positioned to intercept, and in severe cases cause direct physiological stress during upstream spawning runs. Reduced returns to spawning grounds mean fewer fish producing the next generation of commercially harvestable stock. The prey availability dimension is worth understanding in detail. Salmon feed primarily on small forage fish, krill, and zooplankton during their ocean phase. Warmer water temperatures have disrupted the distribution and abundance of these prey species across the Gulf of Alaska. Salmon that cannot find adequate prey during their ocean growth phase return to freshwater spawning grounds smaller and in poorer condition than historical averages. Smaller fish produce fewer eggs. Fewer eggs means smaller future runs. The cascade works against abundance at every stage of the life cycle simultaneously. The 2025 season returned data that the Management Council described as below expectation across multiple sockeye and pink salmon districts. The 2026 allocation adjustments that followed were downward. Commercial processors who supply Costco's canned salmon line are operating with reduced raw tonnage and are prioritizing their highest margin product formats. Costco volume bulk canning contracts are competing against premium retail and food service buyers for a shrinking catch. The frozen salmon situation carries a separate complication. Flash frozen wild salmon requires cold chain continuity from vessel to processor to distribution center to warehouse floor. Any disruption in that chain, port congestion, refrigerated transport delays, power interruptions at processing facilities, degrades product quality below the Kirkland specification threshold. Costco pulls product that does not meet spec. They do not discount it or relabel it. It does not make it to the floor. Canned wild salmon stores for 3 to 5 years at full quality. The case packs available now at current Kirkland pricing represent a significant value against where this category is heading. This is not a drill. If this is exactly the kind of intelligence you need before it hits your cart, hit the like button right now and subscribe to this channel. These supply timelines are moving faster than the news is covering them. Subscribe so you are never reading this information after the window has already closed. Number 4 is not about fish, not about oil, and not about weather. It is about a decision made inside a foreign government that is sending shockwaves directly into your Costco shopping cart. Number 4, Kirkland Signature cashews. And mixed nuts. Costco moves nuts in quantities that most retailers cannot match. The Kirkland 40-ounce cashew canister and the mixed nut assortment are perennial bestsellers, the kind of item members load into the cart on autopilot. That autopilot is about to hit turbulence. Vietnam produces roughly 40% of the world's processed cashews. The raw nuts themselves are grown primarily in West Africa, particularly Ivory Coast, Ghana, and Guinea-Bissau, and shipped to Vietnamese facilities for shelling, roasting, grading, and packaging before export to the United States and other consuming markets. This two-continent supply chain creates multiple points where disruption compounds. The first pressure point is at the farm level. Cashew trees require a specific dry season, followed by a defined rainy season to set fruit correctly. The timing and intensity of those seasonal patterns across West Africa have become less predictable over the past 5 growing cycles. Late rains, early rains, and drought conditions during the nut development window have produced below-average raw nut yields in multiple growing seasons. Lower raw nut availability means Vietnamese processors are competing more aggressively for a smaller supply pool, driving raw material costs upward before a single nut is shelled. The processing infrastructure in Vietnam adds a further vulnerability. Vietnamese cashew processing is concentrated in a relatively small number of large facilities. A labor disruption, a regulatory compliance issue, or a single facility-level production problem creates an outsized effect on total export volume because there is limited geographic redundancy in the processing network. When a large processing hub slows or stops, the ripple reaches American shelves within the same quarter. The second pressure point is trade policy. Cashews are directly in the path of the revised tariff schedules, affecting imported food products from Southeast Asian processing nations. The duties applied to processed nuts entering the U.S. market have increased under the current trade framework, adding a cost layer that lands directly on the landed price Costco's buyers. Negotiate. For a product sold in 40-ounce volumes at a price point, members expect to be significantly below grocery retail. Even a moderate per-pound landed cost increase creates a margin problem that cannot be absorbed indefinitely. The third pressure point is the nut mix formulation itself. When cashew prices spike, the blended nut products that use cashews as a primary component either reformulate with a lower cashew percentage, reprice the unit, or get discontinued. Costco's buyers are under pressure to maintain value perception for their members. Reformulating the mix is the path of least resistance, but it triggers a product specification change that requires supplier renegotiation. That process takes time. During that time, the existing product may be discontinued before its replacement is ready. The macadamia, pecan, and pistachio components of the mixed nut category face their own separate supply pressures from Australian drought, U.S. domestic harvest variability, and Iranian origin pistachio trade restrictions respectively. Macadamia production in Australia has faced water allocation constraints in key growing regions of Queensland and New South Wales. Pecan harvests in the American Southwest have been affected by heat stress during the critical pollination window. The entire nut category is simultaneously stressed across almost every constituent species, which means there is no component to lean on while the others recover. Stock the canisters while the formulation and the price still reflect the current sourcing model. That combination has a shorter runway than it appears. Nuts are a trade and harvest story stacked on top of each other. But what is coming at number 3 is different in kind. It is a cold chain story, and it is one of the most shocking supply failures on this entire list. Number 3. Kirkland Signature, Colombian coffee, whole bean. Coffee is the one item Costco members will pay almost any price to keep in stock. The warehouse knows this, which is why what is happening at the green bean commodity level is so significant, and why the internal sourcing conversation has been quieter than it should be given the scale of the problem. Arabica coffee futures reached their highest prices in over 40 years in late 2024. That is not a typo. 40 years. The commodity price spike was driven by simultaneous harvest failures in the two countries that together produce the majority of the world's Arabica supply. Brazil, the single largest coffee-producing country on Earth, experienced its most severe drought in decades during the 2023 to 2024 growing cycle. The drought hit during the critical cherry development stage when moisture is most essential to yield. Smaller cherries, lower bean density, and significant tree stress that affects output in subsequent seasons followed. Colombia, which supplies the specific origin beans in the Kirkland Colombian whole bean product, faced a different but equally damaging climate pattern. Excessive rainfall during the harvest window caused cherry fermentation on the tree, a condition where the fruit begins to break down before it can be picked. Fermented cherries produce off flavors that disqualify beans from specialty and commercial-grade certification. Rejected tonnage at origin means less supply entering the export pipeline. The Colombian growing region faces a structural challenge beyond the single-season weather event. Colombian coffee is grown predominantly by smallholder farmers on mountainside plots at high altitude. These farms are not large industrial operations with capital reserves to absorb a bad season and replant aggressively. When a harvest fails, smallholder farmers face immediate income collapse. Some exit coffee farming entirely. Others reduce investment in crop maintenance, which reduces yield quality in subsequent seasons even when weather cooperates. The human dimension of the Colombian supply problem is not a footnote. It is a structural fragility that makes Colombia's export volumes less reliable than the country's reputation for quality would suggest. The roasting and packaging layer adds a separate cost variable. The Colombian Kirkland product is roasted to a specific profile under a supplier contract. Green bean input costs have risen dramatically. Roasters locked into supply contracts at lower commodity prices have repriced those contracts at renewal. Costco's buyer negotiations at the next contract cycle will reflect current green bean market pricing, not the pricing baked into the last agreement. The consumer impact timeline has been buffered by forward contracts and existing inventory. That buffer is not permanent. What lands on Costco warehouse shelves in the second half of 2026 and into 2027 will reflect a sourcing cost environment that current shelf pricing does not yet communicate. Whole bean coffee stored in an airtight, light opaque container away from heat retains full quality for several months to a year. A 3 to 4 month supply bought at current Costco pricing is a direct and rational response to where commodity futures are pointing. The price you pay at the warehouse today is not the price that will be there when you run out. Coffee is a commodity crisis with a retail lag. Number 2 has no lag at all. The price adjustment is happening right now, and most Costco members have not connected the dots yet. Number 2. Kirkland Signature. Imported wine cases. Costco is the largest wine retailer in the United States. That fact surprises most people who do not think of a warehouse store as a wine destination. But Costco moves more wine by volume than any dedicated wine retailer in the country, and a significant portion of that volume is imported European wine. The specific category now in the direct path of a tariff adjustment with a specific effective date. The revised duty schedules currently in effect and being implemented through mid-2026 cover wine from France, Italy, and Spain in ways that directly affect the price architecture of Costco's imported wine program. France produces the Bordeaux, Burgundy, and Champagne that anchor the top of the Costco wine floor. Italy produces the Barolo, Chianti, and Pinot Grigio that fill the value and mid-range tiers. Spain supplies the Rioja and Albarino that Costco members have come to expect at what feels like impossibly good value. All 3 countries. All 3 tiers of the offering. Simultaneously. A tariff is not absorbed at the point of import. It is a cost that passes through the distribution chain, importer to distributor to retailer, with a margin percentage applied at each step by each party. A $10 increase in the tariff cost of a case does not produce a $10 increase at the Costco shelf. It produces a $14 to $16 increase by the time every party in the chain has applied their standard margin to the new, higher cost base. The math compounds against the consumer at every stage. The wine category has a secondary pressure operating beneath the tariff headline. Several of the European wine regions that supply Costco's most popular value tier bottles have faced their own climate-driven harvest challenges in recent seasons. Bordeaux experienced frost events in 2021 that reduced production significantly. Burgundy has faced alternating drought and hail, events that have compressed yields in specific appellations. Chianti Classico production in Tuscany has been affected by summer heat events that accelerate grape ripening faster than winemakers can manage optimally. The wines available to Costco's buyers are not just more expensive because of tariffs. In some appellations, there are simply fewer of them to buy. Costco's buying power provides a partial buffer. The warehouse negotiates harder on landed costs than any other retailer, and its volume leverage allows it to absorb a portion of input cost increases before passing them to members. But absorbing a structural tariff adjustment indefinitely is not a business model. It is a temporary subsidy with a defined endpoint. The Costco Buyer's Note program, where the warehouse guarantees a price for a defined inventory purchase, has already been used to lock in current pricing on specific wine SKUs before the tariff adjustment fully lands. That inventory will sell through. What comes after it reflects the new cost reality. The wines that will be most visibly affected are the ones in the $15 to $30 per bottle tier. the exact price band where Costco's wine program offers its most outsized value relative to the grocery store shelf. Those bottles, bought today at the current tariff-inclusive price, represent the value that the post-adjustment world will not replicate. If this video is giving you the information you need to shop ahead of the curve, hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second and it helps this video reach more people who need to see it before the window closes. The wine tariff is a dated, trackable adjustment. Number 1 is the item that ties the entire list together, and it is the one product Costco absolutely cannot source its way out of because the problem is not supply. It is the thing supply depends on. Number 1. Kirkland Signature Organic Baby Formula and Infant Nutritional Products. If you have an infant in your household, this is the item that belongs at the very top of your priority list, not at number 1 of a countdown. The positioning is for the structure of this video. The urgency is not graduated, it is immediate. The infant formula market in the United States has not returned to genuine stability since the supply crisis of 2022. What the 2022 shortage exposed was not a temporary production hiccup. It was a structural fragility built into a market where 3 manufacturers control the overwhelming majority of domestic supply, where the regulatory requirements for formula production are appropriately strict but create significant barriers to new entrants, and where the import pathway that could theoretically supplement domestic supply is constrained by tariff rate quotas and certification requirements that limit how much foreign formula can enter the U.S. market at competitive pricing. The FDA regulatory framework for infant formula is more stringent than for almost any other food category for entirely appropriate reasons. Formula is the sole source of nutrition for many infants, and the consequences of a contamination event or nutritional deficiency are immediate and severe. Those strict standards mean that new manufacturing entrants face a multi-year regulatory approval pathway before a single can reach a retail shelf. The high barrier to entry that protects consumers from unsafe products is the same barrier that prevents the market from self-correcting quickly when a supply shortage develops. Both things are true simultaneously. Costco's organic and specialty formula line occupies the premium tier of this already fragile market. The organic certification requirement adds sourcing constraints on top of the standard formula manufacturing requirements. Organic certified dairy inputs, the base of most organic infant formula, come from a limited pool of certified farms. When those farms face the same feed cost and herd size pressures affecting the broader dairy sector, organic formula manufacturers face an input shortage with no non-organic substitution available without losing their certification. An organic dairy farm that reduces herd size to manage feed costs does not produce less organic milk. It exits organic certification entirely if it cannot maintain the pasture access and feed standards the certification requires. Supply does not taper gradually. It can drop suddenly when a certified farm exits the program. The European organic formula products that many parents turn to during the 2022 shortage, High PP, Holla, and Lebenswert, among them, are now subject to the tariff adjustments affecting European food imports. The premium and specialty formula segment, which includes European origin products sold through Costco and other premium retailers, faces duty increases that translate directly to retail price increases in the second half of 2026. For a parent whose infant is on a specific formula that is working, a price increase is painful but manageable. An availability gap is not. It is a medical emergency in slow motion. The Costco organic formula line has experienced intermittent pallet shortages at distribution centers over the past 2 quarters. The pattern is not uniform across all warehouse locations, which is why it has not generated mainstream coverage. But members who track the category have noticed. Online Costco member forums show recurring threads about specific formula SKUs being unavailable for multiple consecutive warehouse visits before returning, then disappearing again. That intermittent availability pattern is the leading indicator of a more sustained shortage before supply stabilizes. Intermittent unavailability is not a random inventory glitch. It is the supply chain communicating, in the only language it has, that the buffer between production capacity and retail demand has narrowed to a point where any disruption creates a visible gap on the warehouse floor. The practical guidance is the same as it was during the 2022 crisis, adjusted for what we now know. If your infant is on a formula that is working, do not switch it unless medically directed to do so. Build a 60 to 90-day buffer beyond your current supply at current pricing. Do not use the warehouse club format as your only sourcing channel. Maintain a backup relationship with a pharmacy or specialty retailer who carries the same or a compatible formula. Know the hypoallergenic and extensively hydrolyzed alternatives in advance, so that if your primary formula becomes unavailable, you have a pre-researched substitute to move to rather than making a desperate decision at a stressed moment. Costco cannot warehouse club its way out of this one. The supply constraint is upstream of anything a retailer's buying power can solve. The formula that your infant needs is not something you locate after the shelf goes empty. You locate it now, you build the buffer now, and you monitor availability on a schedule that matches the volatility the supply data indicates. These 6 items are not random. They are the intersection of climate failure, trade policy, commodity volatility, and structural market fragility, all arriving in the same retail window. Costco does not warn its members lightly. When the signals come from inside the supply chain rather than from a press release, that is the time to act. The members who move now will have what they need. The ones who wait will have the same empty shelf everyone else is staring at. Shop ahead. Stack smart. And know what you are buying before the warehouse tells you it is gone. The next video on the left covers 12 more items disappearing from store shelves before summer. The timeline is tighter than you think. Click on the left. I will see you there.